Wednesday, February 9th, 2022 morning session of the Portland City Council. Keelan, I hope you're doing well today. Please call the roll.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Commissioners. Rubio.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Hardesty.
Here.
Maps.
Here.
Wheeler.
Here, under Portland City Code and state law, the City Council is holding this meeting electronically. All members of the council are attending remotely by video and teleconference. And the city's made several avenues available to the public to listen to the audio broadcast of this meeting. The meeting is available to the public on the city's YouTube channel, eGov PDX, www.portlandoregon.gov/video, and channel 30. The public may also provide written testimony to the council by emailing our amazing council clerk at cctestimony@portlandoregon.gov. cctestimony@portlandoregon.gov. The council is taking these steps as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the need to limit in-person contact, as well as to promote physical distancing. The pandemic is an emergency that threatens the public health, safety, and welfare, which requires us to meet remotely by electronic communications for now. Thank you all for your patience, your flexibility, and your understanding as we manage through these unique circumstances to conduct the city's business. And with that, we'll hear from legal counsel on the rules of order and decorum. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions, reports, or the first readings of ordinances. The published council agenda at www.portland.gov/council/agenda contains information about how and when you may sign up for testimony while the city council is holding electronic meetings. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. Sorry, I have a puppy here. A golden retriever pup, and she's trying to disconnect the computer. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you're a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When your time is up, the presiding officer will ask you to conclude. Disruptive conduct such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being placed on hold or ejected from the remainder of the electronic meeting. Please be aware that all council meetings are recorded. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. First up is, as always, communications. First individual, please, Keelan, item number 74.
Request of Rick Krebs to address council regarding a ban on the sale of fur and foie gras.
Good morning, Mayor Wheeler, commissioners, and council attorney. My name is Rick Krebs. I'm an internal medicine physician and have been a Portland resident for the past 21 years. I very much appreciate the opportunity to speak in support of both a ban on fur, but also a ban on foie gras in the city of Portland. I feel strongly about these issues for both general as well as specific, reasons specific to each concern. I feel that generally speaking, both the fur trade as well as the practice of foie gras represent a relatively small amount of economic activity for our city and are enjoyed by relatively few people here. Neither the business community nor Portlanders as a whole, Portland customers as a whole, rely on these. Similarly, both fur and foie gras depend on the use of animals in a way that I believe is not necessary for our survival and entails pain and fear involved in the raising of both animals. In terms of specific reasons in support of a ban on fur, for one, the ban on fur echoes a statewide California ban on fur, but also supports the decision of large Portland-based retailers such as Nordstrom, Mario's, and Yves Saint Laurent to remove or begin the removal of fur from their inventories. We also know that farming is wasteful of resources, in particular, creating a high carbon dioxide output for the amount of fur produced. In addition, it has worsened the spread of COVID-19, as studies have shown that these animals have a high likelihood of spreading the virus. In terms of foie gras, this is more than anything for me an issue of a painful process to create something of questionable value to society as a whole. Although some people do enjoy it, to be sure. In both cases, either fur or foie gras, I feel that we have much more economical and humane alternatives that can bolster our economy if we choose to focus our resources on them. Thank you very much. And I kindly ask each of you to support a ban on both fur and foie gras in Portland. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next individual, please. Keelan, item number 75.
Request of Molly Elwood to address council regarding banning the sale of fur.
Good morning, Molly.
Hi. So I'm Molly Elwood, and I'm speaking as a Portland resident and also Oregonian. I'm also asking you to please pass a ban on the sale of fur in Portland. In early 2019, Fur Free PDX launched a campaign to pass a Portland fur sale ban. And by November 25th, they had collected nearly 5,000 handwritten signatures from Portland residents. 50 local businesses and over 50 nonprofits also gave their support. But City Hall's response was that this wasn't the right time. Well, we're now 2 years into the pandemic and the city's challenges have worsened. And I'm asking, when would it actually ever be the right time? When we talk about the global fur trade, we're talking about hundreds of millions of animals killed each year. And for reference, there are 329 million people in the US. So the animals include rabbits, mink, foxes, coyotes, seals, dogs, and cats. And roughly 85% of those are raised on factory farms. Now, imagine this as though it were your dog or your cat or your new puppy. On fur farms, they'd spend their entire short lives in a cramped cage. Confinement and boredom will lead to frantic pacing, self-mutilation, and cannibalism. They'd be killed by anal electrocution, gassing, suffocation, or neck breaking. If they were trapped in the wild, they could be stuck in a trap for days, exposed to the elements, injured and bleeding, and often without food or water. And they'd likely be shot or bludgeoned to death. We would never allow this to happen to our companion animals, and we shouldn't endorse this cruelty happening to other animals. Portland is widely known for its progressive ethics. We value kindness and compassion, and we have respect for life. Passing this ordinance would only reinforce Portland's reputation as a city committed to fairness, equality, and justice. Last year, a statewide fur sales ban, HB 2676, was introduced at the state level, but it didn't make a hearing. Lawmakers plan to reintroduce it in 2023, but they need a city in Oregon to lead the way. For reference, California passed a statewide fur sales ban in 2019, which was made possible because of West Hollywood, Berkeley, San Francisco, and LA had already banned fur. With 4 US cities passing similar bans in the last year, with retailers and designers dropping fur products, with fur farming recognized as a public health risk and a risk to the environment, now is the right time for Portland to become the next fur-free city. Lewis and Clark's Animal Law Clinic provided your offices with a thorough legislative analysis and gave recommendations for where ordinance could live in the city code. We have attorneys in our coalition that'd be willing to meet with staff or a city attorney and work through any other roadblocks. I hope the City Council will listen to your constituents and to your hearts and take action. Please find time in the agenda to introduce the fur sale ban. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your being here this morning. Next up, next individual, please. Item 76, please, Keelan.
Request of Chris Mason to address council regarding homelessness impacts and suggestions.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. My name is Chris Mason, and I live in inner Southeast Portland. Today, I am here to speak about the houseless situation consuming our city. And because the perception persists, I would like to state that I am not one that wants a houseless situation to just disappear. But as a constituent, I would like my representatives' decisions and my tax dollars to actually and visually appear to be providing assistance, all while controlling the negative side effects. But how can I think this is the case as I drive through downtown or anywhere in the city? And personally, I've had to clean up human waste, multiple needles, and 10-inch knife for my own front yard. And just across the street, I've seen tents set up dangerously close to the busy road, so much so that passing cars and businesses almost clip them. I've had to listen to a man's profanity-laced rantings all times of day and night. I've watched him, that same man, accost person after person passing by or simply waiting for the bus near his tent. I've watched him throw a flashlight at a passing car. He's also started fires, one of which the fire department had to be called to put out. To all of this, I have filed multiple reports, and the actions from my city to date, well, he's still there. Sadly, I know I'm not alone. From the news articles I read, to chats with people all over the city, to watching past council meetings, of which those sadden me the most, as I watch citizen after citizen pleading for help and business after business begging for assistance. And yet, when responses were given, they generally fell into the bucket of hang in there with us, be our partner. Well, that bucket is far too full and has gone on far too long to faithfully be relied upon. Yet, with all that, there is no expression of a definitive action plan, no timetable, no concrete steps that I can discern, other than proposed safe spaces that will somehow fix everything someday in the future. Houselessness has been around since the birth of cities, so better playbooks have to be available to work with. Not all cities are looking like Portland is these days, some within a half-hour drive. And to that worn out excuse of being unprecedented times, I say, then please start implementing unprecedented solutions. For example, why, as a progressive city, are we not opening up city lots, parking structures, etc., as designated areas for this camping to occur and only to occur? Would it not allow for services such as food, showers, restrooms, housing, medical, and drug assistance to be provided in a more direct, efficient, and effective manner? Would it not also allow for the actionable cleanup of our city? And are those actions not respectful, humane, and forward-thinking? Because as of it is today, how is it humane to just leave people sprawled out all over the city to fend for themselves? And why is it okay for all the adjacent homeowners, business owners, renters to have to live through, clean up, and deal with all the negative side effects that are caused by inactions to date? Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We appreciate your being here. Thank you. Next individual, please, item 77.
Request of Walter Weiler to address council regarding good neighbor agreements and no tent zones surrounding Safe Rest Village sites.
Good morning.
Walter, you're muted.
There. Morning, Commissioners. I am Walter Weiler. I live in downtown Portland and am the board chair of and speaking on behalf of the Downtown Neighborhood Association, the DNA. The DNA supports council's initiatives to create safe rest villages to temporarily shelter our homeless population while simultaneously working to ensure long-term housing solutions. Recently, in a press release, it was announced that Mayor Weiler and Commissioner Ryan announced the rule change to ensure 150-foot unsanctioned camping buffer around Safe Rest Village sites. My compliments. Well done. Well done. The success of Safe Rest Villages depends on neighborhood acceptance. I urge the council to establish and enforce 150-foot unsanctioned camping buffers around all city-sanctioned homeless sites, including Bud Clark Commons, C3PO Villages, Greyhound Terminal, River District, Navigation Center, 2331 NATO Parkway, and Behavioral Health Resource Center in the Bouchon Building. A major threat to the acceptance of new sites is that sites like the Bud Clark Commons, C3PO Villages, and the Greyhound Terminal are surrounded by trash and tents. This trash and tents cripples businesses, spoils neighborhood livability, and damages the reputation of the sites. Neighborhoods will be more inclined to accept safe rest villages if there are enforced regulations that ensure villages are not surrounded by clusters of tents and trash. The operative word here is enforce. I urge you to enact and enforce 150-foot unsanctioned camping buffers around all city-sanctioned sites as a means of supporting their acceptance and success. We realize those safe villages are necessary and important, and we support it enthusiastically. Oh, incidentally, these zones can be included in good neighborhood agreements for each site. And the DNA membership includes experienced volunteers that are eager to help the city establish these good neighborhood agreements. Call on us. We are ready. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you, sir, for being here again today. We appreciate it. Let's see. Yeah, we can do this first. Time certain item, please. Keelan, item number 78.
Proclaim February 2022 Black History Month.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tammy, did you have your hand raised for some reason?
No, sorry. I don't know how I did that. I'm trying to do emails while listening in.
Yeah, no worries. We're in a time of multitasking, so I totally understand. Colleagues, as a council each year, we recognize Black History Month, and I'm sorry, I did not read my agenda thoroughly. Commissioner Maps, you're up first.
I think actually Commissioner Hardesty starts us out today.
Somebody
I wasn't
other than
aware
me.
it was
should
on my
start.
list, but I am happy to start us out.
You go ahead and start us off, Commissioner. Thank you.
It goes Hardesty, me, then I introduce Ken.
Perfect. And if anybody wonders, we did not practice this in
Good.
advance.
Welcome to
The
Dress
real
Rehearsal.
thing as it unfolds.
Let me just first start off by saying Happy Black History Month. And thank you, Mayor, for actually allowing us to change the order of how we will do this today. Traditionally, the mayor will read the proclamation, but Ken asked for permission and was granted the opportunity to read the proclamation that they put together. As we start centering ourselves today, especially around the issues of health and healing and recovery for Black employees, I thought back for a moment of what Oregon was like when I first moved here in the 90s. And when I moved here in the 90s, Charles Moose was Portland Police Chief, first Black police chief in the city's history. Gladys McCoy was the Multnomah County Chairwoman, the first African-American woman to hold that position and still the only. Dick Bogle was a Portland City Council member. Bill McCoy was the Oregon State Senator. Jim Hill was the Oregon State Treasurer, and Margaret Carter was a Oregon State Representative, being the first African-American woman elected to that position. So as I think about Black History Month, I want my colleagues and the public to know that every day of the year, 365 days and 366 on leap year is Black History Day. And we live that every single day as we go through our day, regardless of what our position and our title is. We as Black people understand that we have to demand the opportunity to be who we are and to bring our whole self to work. I also want to spend a little time talking about the history of CAN. CAN was founded, it's really unclear when it was founded, but it was founded in a desire for Black employees to collectively advocate for their interests and for the interests of the city of Portland. And CAN has operated primarily with volunteers, primarily with the willing, for at least since the late 90s, and just started being recognized for the volunteer work that they've done for so long on behalf of Black employees, and I would say for all employees at the city of Portland, trying to help Black employees actually find their place and their voice. I can tell you, as the first African-American woman on this council, everybody's not happy that I sit on this council, and people have been trying to silence my voice since the day I showed up. But I am who I am, and I will not be silenced. And CAN is who it is, and it will not be silenced. And I want to make sure that the people who are listening today really understand the significance and honestly, the bravery it takes for employees at all levels of a governmental organization to look their bosses in the eye and say, you are failing us, and you continue to fail us, and you continue to not walk your talk. I want to make sure that as we celebrate Black history, we understand that today we actually have a BIPOC caucus in the legislature. When I went to Salem in '97, I was the only African-American, the only woman in both parties. So while we continue to make progress, we also continue to be stymied by institutional racism and white fragility, and the inability of some folks to acknowledge that Black people come in all shapes, sizes, and forms. And we've earned the right to be good city employees, and we are good city employees, and we earn the right to be promoted and to be recognized and to be acknowledged for the great work we do every day. I have a question that I'm just going to put out there because I don't know where to get the answer. But since Multnomah County has declared racism a public health issue, are we making sure that our healthcare plan allows for people who are constantly, either through many aggressions or outright racism, being impacted in their day-to-day job? How does our health plan make sure that employees who are experiencing this have safe places to go and to heal? We're only going to heal if we acknowledge the harm that's been done and then collectively decide, we're going to do better. I want to say I was proud of Ken last year. It took a lot of courage for you to ask for a work session and present information that you developed as volunteers, and to present it in front of the city council, your bosses, and actually ask us to pay attention and to be intentional and to do something to make sure we don't lose another 43% of Black employees over the next couple of years. So and let me just say, Black History Month is a month of celebration, of appreciating our culture, of appreciating the uniqueness of who we are, whether it's how we dress, how we talk, how we walk, how we wear our hair, how we engage with community. It's a time to celebrate that and to appreciate that. But I'm going to challenge my colleagues. We have to do it more than just in February and just with a proclamation. We have to actually make sure that the decisions we make are having a positive impact, not just on Black employees, but the Black community in general. So I will stop there. I will thank you for your time. Thank you for listening, and turn it over to my esteemed colleague, Commissioner Max.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Colleagues, it's an honor for me to join you in declaring February 2022 to be Black History Month here in Portland. The history of African Americans in Oregon is long, occasionally troubling, but ultimately triumphant. The first confirmed report of a person of African descent in Oregon dates back to 1788. His name was Marcus Lupius, a crew member aboard the Lady Washington, a sailing ship that became the first American vessel to make landfall on the west coast of America. 25 years later, in 1803, an enslaved man known as York came to Oregon as part of the Lewis and Clark expedition. 41 years after that, in 1844, Oregon's provincial government passed the first of Oregon's Black exclusion laws. Those laws stated that Blacks who settled in Oregon would be publicly whipped with 39 lashes, repeated every 6 months until they left the state. In 1926, less than 100 years ago, Oregon repealed the last of its Black exclusion laws. And in 1994, just 69 years after the last of Oregon's Black exclusion laws were repealed, our friend and colleague Joanne Hardesty became the 5th African-American elected to Oregon State Legislature. Of course, Hardesty also went on to become the first Black woman to serve on this Portland City Council. Commissioner Hardesty is a true Portland trailblazer. That's why I'd like to take a moment to thank Commissioner Hardesty for her service to our city and Portland's Black community. Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. The fact that Commissioner Hardesty serves on this council today is a sign of how far Portland has come. Still, there's much work left to be done. In Portland, African Americans are both more likely to be victims of crime and more likely to be arrested than our white neighbors. In Portland, there is no neighborhood where the average Black family can afford to rent an apartment. In Portland, African Americans are more likely to catch COVID and succumb to their disease than their white neighbors. And in Portland, African American youth are less likely to get the mental health services they need than their white peers. I could go on and list a dozen more examples of the ways in which African Americans suffer disproportionately bad health outcomes here in Portland. But instead, I want to bring forward the City of Portland's African American affinity groups so they can share more about this month's focus on health and wellness. And with that, I am pleased to welcome the City of Portland's African American Network, CAN, and our special artistic guest, Javon Carter, who I believe will sing the Black National Anthem. I'll confess I'm not quite sure who we have with us today, except for Javon. I can see Javon out there in the audience. So I just want to thank whoever our invited guests are to please turn on their cameras and join us.
So Commissioner Mapps, I see Marvin Dean and Ira Bailey both here representing.
Okay, Marvin, great. I think I heard earlier that they might not be able to be here today. Welcome, CAN.
Thank you, Commissioner Mapps. Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. And yes, we have a guest singer today, Mr. Javon Carter, who will be singing the Black National Anthem for us first. Great.
And before you start, even though we're all remote, this is the Black National Anthem. So we would really encourage people to stand as this song is being sung. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And we will begin singing the song. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling seas. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Thank you.
Thank you, Javon. That was beautiful, brother. Really, really appreciate that. And thank you for one of our other CAN members, Jarrell Hosley, for finding Javon. That was unprecedented there. I love that. Thank you so much. I don't know if that's ever been done before, but I'm glad that this happened in this space at this time. So thank you so much for that. So are we ready to proceed with the reading of the proclamation? Is that correct?
That's correct, unless you have some comments you want to make prior to reading the proclamation.
Well, we don't have comments. We were given a kind of a run of show, and before we read the proclamation, we were informed that we would have time for the commissioners to make any statements or comments prior to us reading.
This would be an appropriate time if anyone on council wanted to share some thoughts.
Yeah, very good. I'd certainly like to take this opportunity. Thank you. What a special treat that was. And how fortunate one is to have a voice like that. That is very impressive and moving. Thank you. As a city council, each year we recognize Black History Month, and each year we recognize this important event with a proclamation from the city council, underscoring the important role that the Black community plays in the culture in our community. It's not incidental, it is central to our community and who we are. We also recognize that many of the problems that we struggle with as a council, the biggest, thorniest issues that we discuss, they all disproportionately impact Black Portlanders. And Commissioner Hardesty alluded to that, as did Commissioner Maps. And it's not lost on me that as a white man of privilege, I'm never going to completely understand what it's like to grow up or just simply live in our city as a Black person. But as mayor, what I can tell you is that I will continue to advocate for investments that support and uplift our Black community at every step. And I'm also cognizant of my role as the police commissioner. Policing is front and center right now in this discussion about the treatment of Black people, not only in our community, but in our nation, and not just today, but historically as well. And I can assure you that the work to reform our police bureau is done with consideration of the impacts years of injustice have had on the Black community. And I know that all of my colleagues are committed to that. And there is one thing that I think every single one of us should remember to do. And quite frankly, it's probably the easiest and the most overlooked thing to do, which is to listen. To listen to our friends in the Black community. There is so much that we can learn just by listening. But I've also heard from our officers at CAN, and I've heard from others in the community as well, that listening is a critical first step, but it is not the last step. The last step, and the most important step, is action that reflects what we've heard. I want to thank the members of the City African American Network for their beautiful work on this proclamation, for the drafting of this proclamation. I want to thank you again for just the beautiful rendition of the national anthem. I want to thank you for all you do, not only today, but all you do throughout the remainder of the year as well. Thank you. Commissioner Rubio.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Commissioner Hardesty and Commissioner Maps and Mayor Weiler for bringing this proclamation forward. And thank you, CAN, for also bringing this proclamation forward, but also for your leadership and your achievements, not just today, but every day on behalf of Black City employees and our community. And as you know, as we all know, along with the pandemic, racism is the other public health crisis that is chronic, that impacts and harms the lives of Black people. And so that's something that we shouldn't just, it's already been said, be remembering today, but actually integrated into our work every day. And last October, during the work session, you presented us with information about how our city needs to take these meaningful steps to promote opportunities, retention, and wellness. And especially, we had a really good information about mental health wellness among our Black employees. And I truly, truly hope that we are making progress together on those things. And I would love to hear how that's going in the future. because while we honor the contributions of the Black community, and as the mayor and others have said about the culture and education and the economy, all these contributions to our Portland community, it's also equally important to support, protect, and preserve the lives of Black people everywhere. And as a city, our work should project our city's values through our policies, through our investments, and our employees. So the question we should all be asking ourselves in our work every day is, does this decision or action move us toward a more thriving Black community, or does it move us away from it? And in these times more than ever, and as a non-Black elected official of color like myself, along with other allies, work to transform the very institution that perpetuates these inequalities, we must also really continually show up, as others mentioned, listen and learn. But also a very key thing we need to do is to self-reflect, not just take it in, but how to integrate that into how we dismantle internalized racism and oppression within our own lives too, and act. So finally, I just want to appreciate the leadership and contribution also of my two colleagues today. Commissioner Hardesty, we've known each other for 2 decades, and I want to thank you for your advocacy, your personal support of me in my first year as a new elected official, and your dedication to lifting up our BIPOC and vulnerable communities. And Commissioner Mapps, I deeply appreciate your love for this city and for your commitment to building strong local communities and the joy and energy you bring to this work every day. So thank you all for bringing this important discussion forward today.
Thank you, Commissioner Rubio. Commissioner Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Commissioner Hardesty and Commissioner Mapps, and most importantly, also the members of the City African American Network, and namely Javon. When we begin meetings with centered and with song, it's just always a better meeting. Thank you so much for allowing us to just take a moment and be present. Marvin, Ira, it's always a pleasure to see you, and for bringing this important proclamation, recognizing the Black community and Black individuals experiencing the city and the tremendous contributions that you bring to Oregon's history and to our city. I have such a deep appreciation for the African American Network and for your work every day. You bring your whole selves to your jobs in service to Portland. You're lifting the places for us to work and improve and make things better for the city of Portland every day, not just this month. The meeting I had with CAN earlier this year was one of, or about 6 months ago, was one of my most memorable of the past year. And I want to again thank you for that. I firmly believe that Black Lives Matter, and as such, taking action on those beliefs. I'm a firm believer in you know what you want by what you do, not just by you tweet, etc. Simply put, when Black lives thrive, Portland thrives, and so do our values of equity, justice, inclusivity. And we get to work harder to establish and rebuild systems that for so long have put so many Black Portlanders and other communities of color on the outside of our city's infrastructure, development, and prosperity. This city council has an unprecedented opportunity to grapple with Portland's racist legacy in a real meaningful way, instilling permanent presence of justice in our city. I feel so fortunate again to be on a commission, a body of leaders with Commissioner Hardesty and Commissioner Mapps, who have completely different styles at times, yet they both are rooted in their African-American experience, and they bring that, their whole selves, to their roles, and that alone is so meaningful. And I really appreciate what you were just saying, Commissioner Rubio, about how we take this in, and that's like an onion just constantly peeling. And with that comes tears and reflection, and then just doing the right thing. Anyway, I'm grateful that we take time to center ourselves with such memorable moments on the City Council. And I do look forward to hearing the proclamation from our good people of CAN. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. And with that, we'll turn it back to our employees for the reading of the proclamation.
Looks like Commissioner Mapps, did you have your hand up? You want to?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to help a little bit with the run of show, but the mayor did
did
the right thing there. So
cool.
Carry on.
Thank you. And before we read it, I did want to make sure I give acknowledgement to our other CAN leadership members, Jarrell Hosley, Layla Hale, Ariel Bradford, and Taisha McCool-Riley. We are the current, myself and Ira Belly as well, we're the current leadership on CAN. And also I want to make sure that I don't forget to give much thanks and respect and love to all the previous CAN leadership members who put in so much work before us to even allow us to be in this space right now. So big shout out to you all. You all know who you are. Thank you for laying the foundation for us to be here today. Ira, you want to start us off, brother?
Yeah. And before we start off, I do want to give extra special thanks to Taisha McCool-Riley, who couldn't be here today, but she is one of the co-authors of today's proclamation. So much respect to her. And if I get emotional, I apologize in advance. It's been a long time since I've heard the Black National Anthem sang for one and sang in a public forum for another. And I truly look forward to the day that we're all able to meet in person, because I can only imagine what it would sound like echoing off the halls of the council chambers. So with that being said, I will begin the proclamation. And thank you, commissioners, and thank you, Mayor, for allowing Marvin and myself the opportunity to read this proclamation, because I do believe this is a first for any proclamation read and not to be read by a member of council or the mayor himself. So, whereas the city of Portland takes pride in joining Americans throughout the country in recognizing February 2022 as Black History Month, and
whereas Black History Month recognizes and pays tribute to the contributions that African Americans have made to American history and their struggles for freedom and equality, and deepens our understanding of our shared history, as well as remembering important and influential people and events in the history of African diaspora. And
whereas the theme for 2022, Black Health and Wellness, acknowledges the historical and modern day challenges of people of African descent, limited subpar access to adequate healthcare and resources that promote holistic wellness, acknowledging systems that have created and perpetuated anti-Black, multi-generational oppressive practices within the healthcare industry, promoting the experience of marginalization, despair, trauma, illness, and ultimately death. And
whereas any genuine and complete description of health needs to include all aspects of a person, including physical, mental, emotional, financial, relational, and spiritual health. And any genuine and complete measure of wellness needs to reflect the level of these areas to the extent that individuals can successfully fulfill that innate essence of existence, which leads to connection, growth, new life, and heritage. And
whereas local and national laws, policies, and practices related to healthcare and insurance have profoundly shaped, defined, and constrained the wellness of Blacks for centuries. Racial inequities have deep roots in the foundations of systems that continue to operate in a way that disseminates racist rhetoric that leads to inaccessible, inadequate, and inequitable treatment that continues to plague the Black narrative of holistic wellness. And
whereas the Black community still experiences the trauma from a healthcare system that was developed on the idea that the Negro is less human than the white man, that mental health concerns in the Black community were something to either be hidden or accepted, that emotional fatigue is communicated as weakness in relation to the idea of the strong Black man and resilient Black woman, and that the pursuit of spiritual health has been characterized as cartoonish, outdated, and irrelevant. And
whereas to this day, millions of African Americans across the country are experiencing health disparities that result in disease, shorter lifespans, mental health disabilities, violence, adverse socioeconomic circumstances, strained interpersonal relationships, spiritual stagnation, and many other dynamics that limit or hinder the potential to experience and achieve optimal health. And
whereas generations of African American individuals, families, and communities have played a significant role in protesting and advocating for the necessity for Black individuals and families to be viewed and valued as human beings, respected, dignified, and worthy of receiving education, services, treatment, and resources to access services that enable centering wellness. And
whereas it is imperative for the survival, long-term growth, and benefit of the Black community in this country to address and finally remove the roots of indirect and unconscious harm that have been done and continue to be perpetuated by mixed messages of our current personal and community's condition by pursuing a holistic approach to health and wellness. And
whereas championing holistic wellness is an indispensable factor in ensuring that Black people can live a happy, healthy, and fulfilling life by promoting spiritual and emotional introspection while deterring illness and disease, being afforded the same opportunities as dominant culture to pursue and achieve holistic health in the Black community significantly alters the narrative of one, improved habits and lifestyle changes, a fortified body that can withstand the onset of disease more easily, an improvement of the natural healing abilities of the body, the prevention of various diseases and disorders, and reduce stress and anxiety levels. And
whereas once the Black community can start to focus on our health and wellness, individually as well as corporately, we will see greater pride within ourselves, stronger connections in our families, healing in our communities, elevation of our values, and deeper and healthier roots of culture and heritage from which a future of love, honor, respect, appreciation, achievement, and celebration will unarguably be the fruit. And
whereas we commend the many achievements, successes, and contributions of African Americans who have contributed to the narrative of endorsing Black health and wellness in various movements, as there has been a significant rise of Black representation and diversity locally and nationally in many contexts. And
whereas creating Black spaces within wellness for us, by us, is vital to creating space for Blacks to finally feel validated, understood, and valuable. Addressing these nuances fosters an experience where we find safety, comfort, power, and community. Throughout our representation, we are providing inspiration for those who want to start to build spaces where Black people can feel safe to explore their own wellness journeys. And
whereas inequality and injustice of Blacks continue to plague our health and wellness systems across cities, states, and the country, and it is the responsibility of citizens to advocate for the oppressed and to work to dismantle systems that contradict the chief advancement of the American notion of life, liberty, happiness, and the pursuit of good health and well-being for all without excluding Blacks.
Now, therefore, on behalf of the City Council, I, Ted Weiler, Mayor of the City of Portland, Oregon, the City of Roses, do hereby proclaim February 2022 Black History Month in Portland and encourage all residents to observe this month. Thank you, Marvin and Ira. Very well done. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, will go to our, actually, let's do the consent agenda first, just so I don't forget. Keelan, have any items been pulled off of consent?
We've had a request for item 81 to be pulled.
All right, could you please call the roll on the remainder of the consent agenda?
Rubio.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Maps.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye, the consent agenda is adopted. To time certain item number 79, please.
Approve amendments to settlement agreement between the United States Department of Justice and the City of Portland.
Colleagues, this was continued until today. The oral record remained open until this morning. Of course, the oral record is now closed. And legal counsel, can you confirm then that we are ready to take a final vote on this?
Yes, Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, very good. Colleagues, any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, Keelan, please call the roll.
Rubio.
I want to thank all the city staff tasked in representing the city in this space. And I also want to thank the DOJ and Amiki for holding these tough conversations with the city and ensuring that we reach a path to compliance. These aren't easy conversations, but we've all managed to find a good level of agreement. And this matter also precedes everyone's time on council, and it involves so many people. In particular, Commissioner Hardesty, you've been closest to this matter among the 5 of us, not just in your elected service, but in your decades of community advocacy. So I want to thank you for all that you've put into this. I also really want to thank the mayor and his team for engaging in this work collaboratively with all our council offices to ensure that we were all integrated and that we got this right through collaboration and communication. So thank you, Mayor. Since before any of us were in office, Portlanders have been asking for our city to provide greater transparency and accountability in our public safety system. So I want to make sure that this point is not lost today, that yes, we're here because we need to come to terms and getting to compliance with the DOJ. But the truth is that these are steps and changes in the direction of what our own community, friends, and neighbors have been asking the city to do for years. So these steps should equally be credited to our own residents as they are to other entities. So both DOJ and our community has moved us forward. And also equally important is to acknowledge where we need to grow as well, and sometimes where the city in its past history has failed communities, and owning these past decisions and their intended or unintended impacts is crucial and necessary for all of us, government and community, to move forward with trust, hope, and healing so that we can continue our work together. The items in this amendment are presented are solid movements forward and will ensure that we hold a high degree of accountability, transparency, and moves us towards change that is good for all of Portland. So I look forward to updates on the progress of this matter, and I'm happy to vote aye.
Ryan.
Yes, I'd like to extend a huge heartfelt thank you to everyone who has worked so hard on this critical issue. Policy reform advocates, mental health advocates, Albina Ministerial Alliance, the city's attorney's office, the Portland Police Bureau, and definitely all 5 council offices and council offices prior to us who have worked together and worked with the DOJ for years to get us where we are now. On the cusp of being back in compliance in the 2014 settlement agreement. 2020 was difficult and trying time for our city and inspiring. Throughout the course of the summer of protest and in the year and a half since, we have collectively reckoned with all that happened and searched for ways to grow and improve. The many long hours given by so many staff is a testament to our city's commitment to do just that. And as such, we're here today to formalize this crucial amendment to the agreement. As always, we have a long way to go in transforming our community safety system, but this action moves the ball forward in concrete ways. Improving the police's training program, ensuring a thorough review and report of the police use of force complaints in 2020, formalizing a commitment to finally join the rest of the country and implement body-worn cameras and more. This package will help us continue the hard and important work of building a better and more accountable system for all of us. Today, we should all be proud. I know the 2 sessions I attended in person were memorable, and it was actually, especially during COVID, so awesome to be in community with all of those who were mentioned earlier. The truth shall set us free. I vote aye.
Hardesty.
We've been on a journey towards being back in compliance with the Department of Justice settlement agreement. These changes that are being proposed are negotiated agreements between the City of Portland and the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. Some of the changes that the DOJ is requiring us to make are changes that the community has wanted for decades. Hiring a civilian training dean is one of those things. This is some additional changes, but I look forward to us continuing to make changes in this settlement agreement because we've learned a lot since 2012 when I was part of the Albina Ministerial Alliance Coalition for Justice and Police Reform that invited the DOJ to town to look at what was happening to Black and Brown community members at the hands of police. The settlement agreement actually focused on folks with mental health issues. And we've learned a lot over the years about who's the appropriate first responders for someone in a mental health crisis. The original settlement agreement required that we train police to be that first responder, but at that time, we did not have a program like Portland Street Response that had a different approach to engaging people with mental health issues. So I look forward to working with the DOJ to continue to update the settlement agreement so that it actually reflects the real work that we're doing today to really reduce community harm by police officers and to ensure that we have accountability built in. I wish we had been done with the settlement agreement, but clearly there's still some work we have to do. But I want to remind this council that where we are today is so significantly different than where we were in 2019, and even in 2012. And so we are on the path towards putting systems in place that the public will trust to have a police force we all can enjoy and know that they're there to serve us all. And so today I am voting yes on this, but I look forward to continuing to update this settlement agreement so it reflects the reality on our streets and it reflects the right first responder going to the right incidents at the right time. I vote aye.
Maps.
I'd like to start out by thanking all the Portlanders who submitted testimony on this ordinance. I'd also like to express my appreciation to the Alberta Ministerial Alliance Coalition for Justice and Police Reform, the Mental Health Alliance, and the Department of Justice for being thought partners in a years-long conversation about how to make policing in Portland better. The amendments before us today represents the communities, the justice departments, and this council's best thinking on police reforms Portland should embrace right away. I support these reforms because they will improve Portland's public safety system in at least 4 important ways. First, this agreement commits the city to providing better training to our police officers. Second, this agreement compels the city to implement a body-worn camera program, and that initiative will promote accountability and transparency in policing. Third, this agreement promotes accountability and transparency by creating a plan to ensure independent oversight of the Police Bureau until the new Community Oversight Board is in place. And fourth, with these amendments, the city agrees to contract with an outside consultant to evaluate the city's response to protest in 2020. That inquiry will help the city do a better job of protecting free speech and public spaces. Now, these are important reforms which represent a significant step towards reinventing Portland's public safety system. But as Commissioner Hardesty reminded us, these steps are only a down payment on public safety reform. Much work lies ahead. Colleagues, as we take this vote, this council should remember that Portland originally entered into the settlement agreement with the Department of Justice a decade ago because of allegations that too often the Portland Police Bureau used too much force against Portlanders suffering from mental illness. Reforms on that important problem must move forward too. That's why it is imperative that this council continue the process of reinventing policing for the city we live in today. Among other things, I believe that means expanding Portland Street Response to the entire city, hiring more unarmed police officers, and expanding the Police Bureau's behavioral health unit. Colleagues, I look forward to working with you in 2022 to fulfill those promises too. For those reasons and more, I vote aye.
Weiler.
I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. To the regular agenda, item 83, please.
Authorize Gateway Regional Center Urban Renewal and Redevelopment Bonds.
Colleagues, this is a second reading. We've already heard presentation and taken public testimony. Any more business here on this particular item? Seeing none, Keelan, please call the roll.
Rubio,
I want to thank everyone at the Prosper Portland team and other bureaus who've worked on this project to increase the impact that this district will have in the community. I'm glad that Prosper Portland is doing all the work to reach all communities, including those that have been left out of projects like these in the past, and hope to hear more about how any excess funds are guided with their participation. I'm happy to vote aye.
Ryan,
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Hardesty, for leading this ordinance to improve the sanitary conditions of storm and drain water in Southeast Portland. I have to admit the testimony last week was, I don't know, it was really exciting, especially the video that explained how this important project is to the community. It's great to have a feel-good, tangible action that we can all be proud of. I vote aye.
Hardesty.
I want to thank Prosper, the Portland Bureau of Transportation, for the enormous work they've done to prepare this area. This is my hood. I am very excited about the improvements that are coming to Gateway. And this is going to make sure that people at all income levels will continue to be able to thrive in Gateway. I am extremely happy to vote aye.
Maps,
Aye.
Wheeler,
Aye, the ordinance is adopted. Item 84.
authorize competitive solicitation not to exceed $2,600,000 for a body worn camera implementation for police officers.
Colleagues, this is an item that was continued from 2 weeks ago as well. The written record also closed this morning on this particular item. Is there any further business on this, Commissioner Rubio?
Mayor, I move to approve the proposed amendments to the ordinance as posted to this item on February 7, 2022.
I second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Rubio. We have a second from Commissioner Hardesty. Any further discussion on the amendments?
Mayor, you may want to, just for the record, explain the amendment.
Commissioner Rubio?
The public.
Sure. Colleagues, the amendment proposed requires PPB to consult with our city attorney's office and our community safety transition director to take into account our ongoing conversations on body worn camera policy. It also ensures that the administration of the program outside of PPB will be addressed and aligned with pending conversations. More importantly, this amendment will allow our city staff to ensure any contract we execute will not come into conflict with any policy that we adopt pertaining to body worn cameras.
Thank you, Commissioner Rubio. Any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, please call the roll on the amendment.
Rubio,
Aye.
Ryan,
Thank you, Commissioner Rubio. Aye.
Hardesty,
I want to thank you, Commissioner Rubio, for being open to helping us find a solution to get to a good outcome. I am happy to vote aye.
Maps,
Aye.
Wheeler,
Aye, the amendment's on the table to the main motion. Keelan, before we do this, I understand that there may have been a little confusion about whether or not public testimony would be available today. And I just want to make sure that there's nobody signed up who would like to testify on this item today.
no, Mayor, I don't believe anybody is.
Okay, very good. Then to the main motion as amended, please call the roll.
Rubio,
Colleagues, I want to thank all of your policy staff that worked with us on the amendment that we just adopted. I also want to express that the amendment we approved addresses the need to ensure any contract does not limit our ability to freely and flexibly create a policy while addressing the expedited need of setting a system up. I also want to stress that this action is for a pilot program. Our DOJ negotiation team has expressed a deep commitment to making sure that any program we begin to explore will not impact the policies that we'll adopt. And we understand that for logistical purposes and DOJ timeline understandings, we must get the ball rolling on this program, but we can and must do it in a way that's responsible and appropriate. And our offices will all continue to work closely together with the city, with other city staff to ensure that the conversations with community, DOJ, PPA, and the MIKI on this program's full implementation will not be circumvented by a contract for this pilot initiative. I want to thank the Mental Health Alliance, ACLU of Oregon, Portland Cop Watch, and the community members that have invested their time and capacity to this. And I look forward to collectively building a program that will work best for Portlanders. I vote aye.
Ryan.
Yes, first of all, thank you to the community for all your testimony. It was very helpful. I'm really proud of the fact that we are here as a council on the verge of implementing body-worn cameras and joining every other large jurisdiction in the country in implementing this necessary measure of transparency and accountability. Why today we are simply voting to approve funds and begin the process building the framework of body-worn cameras infrastructure. It is an essential step, and it is farther than we've ever gotten before in this process. I'm proud of the fact that this city council was able to accomplish that. The policy details of body-worn camera are still being negotiated by the city and PPA, and I will do all I can to ensure that this policy meets the needs of the community as well as the needs of the DOJ. Ensuring camera data is housed independently is so important, and I'm grateful to Commissioner Rubio for introducing today's amendment to that effect. There really is so much work to do in transforming our community safety system, and with the passage of this item, we are taking another big step in the right direction. I vote aye.
Hardesty.
It has certainly taken us a while to get to this spot. And as the community said in their very eloquent testimony, policy matters. Policy dictates function. I'm very happy that we were able to come to an agreement about how to ensure that any body cam footage would be owned by a third-party vendor, because I want to be clear. The only reason I am fully in support of body cams is as an accountability tool, and it is what the DOJ Civil Rights Division is mandating its use for. It is not a crime-fighting tool. It is a tool to ensure that people are following the policies that this council has set. The reason that now is a good time to be a yes vote, and I want to be really clear, is that all of us have seen body cam footage from all over the country that showed egregious behavior with no prosecution at all. The only way I would be a yes vote on a body cam would be that somebody else decided when that information became public and how that information was used. The DOJ is mandating that, and for that reason, I am very happy today to vote aye.
Maps.
I'd like to start by thanking Tammy Mayer, Senior Program Manager with the Portland Police Bureau, for the work that she has done on body camera issues over many years. This council could not ask for a better project manager to Sherpa this project forward. Thank you, Tammy. I'd also like to pause for a moment to thank the many Portland Police Bureau officers who serve our city every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with integrity and humanity. Thanks to all the members of the public who have testified on this ordinance. And I also want to praise Commissioner Rubio for drafting an amendment which addresses some of the concerns raised in public testimony. I'm happy to support Rubio's amendment, and I'm happy to vote aye on this ordinance. Here is why. There's a clear community consensus in Portland. Residents of the Rose City want a public safety system which is more transparent and more accountable. I support outfitting public safety officers with body cameras because doing so will increase transparency and accountability in Portland's public safety system. I also support this ordinance because 80% of the large police departments in the United States use body-worn cameras. In fact, of the 75 largest police departments in the United States, Portland is the only city which does not have a body camera program. For the past year, I have contemplated this example of Portland keeping it weird, and I have come to an unsettling conclusion. The fact that Portland cops are not issued body cameras is a sign that previous councils failed to provide the police bureau with the tools they need in order to provide Portlanders with the basics of a modern public safety system. This is a failing which this council should fix today. And I am not the only one who has reached this conclusion. For example, the U.S. Department of Justice has come to the same conclusion. The Department of Justice has spent the past decade evaluating the Portland Police Bureau. And one of their strong recommendations to this council is that we implement a body cam program for the PPB. In fact, just a few minutes ago, this council passed an ordinance accepting amendments to the settlement agreement between the City of Portland and the Department of Justice. A key provision of that settlement agreement is the requirement that the Portland Police Bureau implement a body camera program. Passing the ordinance before us now is a necessary and inevitable step towards fulfilling that legally binding agreement we signed with the Department of Justice just a few minutes ago. Colleagues, for these reasons and more, I vote aye.
Wheeler.
Colleagues, I have long supported the deployment of body-worn cameras. In fact, since I took office 5 years ago, and just for interesting historical review, the reality is we would have already had the pilot on the street, but for the economic decline in 2020, which then precipitated a $90 million reduction in our general fund budget. At that time, as you know, I had fully funded the pilot for the body-worn camera program here in the city of Portland. And at that time, we made a difficult decision to suspend all programs that were not at that point at their completion. As you know, finding a $90 million budget reduction just on the general fund side of the budget is extreme. In retrospect, it was a good thing that we were forced to pause the deployment of the pilot. And it was a good thing for two reasons. Number one, the technology has changed. It's improved. Just like every other app, body-worn cameras are changing. The ability to manage the data is changing. The strength of independent data providers has improved over the course of just the last 2 years. The number of competitors in the body-worn camera market, at least on the hardware side of the equation, have increased, as well as on the software management, data management side of the equation. So first of all, just the technology has shifted. So a delay in that regard has probably helped us. Secondarily, of course, the U.S. Department of Justice has become far more specific in terms of what their expectations are with regard to the policies around body-worn cameras. And in that sense, I feel that we have a clearer North Star in terms of where we need to go with regard to policy. We have more options available with regard to the RFP, which we've issued around the hardware side of the equation and the management side of the equation. And I feel very optimistic that we will, in fact, deploy a full body-worn camera program in the city of Portland. Again, this is something that overwhelmingly our constituents are telling us that they expect us to do. And again, this is a waypoint, an important waypoint along the path towards that North Star. I also, along with Commissioner Mapps, want to express my sincere thanks to Tammy Mayer for being very diligent, very professional and outstanding in the work that she does and the guidance that she provides to all of us in this program. It is not often enough that the Portland Police Bureau hears from us about the good work that they do. And I support the members of our Portland Police Bureau in their difficult jobs at a difficult time in our history. I understand that we are asking them to make significant evolutions in a relatively short period of time, and they have stepped up to work with us to do that. And Tammy, I suspect you're on this call or listening somewhere. I want you to know that you're just the best of the best. When it comes to this particular program, we could not do it without your excellent leadership. So thank you for that. I vote aye. The ordinance is approved. Next item, item number 85, which is a second reading.
Assess benefited properties for street, sidewalk, stormwater, and sanitary sewer improvements in the Southeast 80th Avenue and Mill Street Local Improvement District.
Second reading, colleagues, we've had a presentation. We've had opportunities for public testimony. Any more business on this particular item? Please call the roll.
Rubio.
I want to thank Commissioner Hardesty for bringing this project forward and also congratulate PBOT and the other Bureau partners on getting this great work to where it is. It's a wonderful project. I was also very happy to learn about the assistance provided by Urban Forestry to PBOT to minimize the impacts on trees. The result was very impressive. This is a great example of innovative cross-bureau collaboration. So congratulations to everyone, and I'm happy to vote aye.
Ryan.
Yes. Well, I've done this once before and I might as well own it. I referenced what I wanted to say on 85 and 83, although I would have voted yes on 83. So here I am being human once again in front of all of you. I do want to just reiterate how amazing that video was and how beautiful it was to see the before and after pictures. We need more before and after pictures, I've decided, so our constituents can really understand the good work that does take place in the city of Portland. I'm enthusiastically support this. I vote aye.
Hardesty.
Thank you, Commissioner Rubio, for your partnership with the Forestry Department. Thank you, PBOT, for once again just shining and actually being responsive to community needs. I'm happy to vote aye.
Maps.
I want to congratulate Commissioner Hardesty for her leadership on this project. This is a model project in terms of infrastructure. I hope that we can replicate the things that we did right here throughout the city. For these reasons and more, I vote aye.
Wheeler.
Yeah, this is a great project. This is one of those projects that the public at large may not see and may not recognize. And Commissioner Hardesty, I applaud you and your team not only for bringing it forward, but the way it was brought forward, I thought was really illustrative of the importance of these projects. They may not on their face seem particularly sexy or exciting, given all the myriads of other issues going on in the city of Portland. But my gosh, they underscored the importance of this. And I sort of chalk it up to two things. People notice certain things and they expect us to do it. And we all hear a lot about homelessness and safety and livability issues and the like. People don't mention infrastructure until something goes horribly wrong. And that's why it's really important to keep bringing these projects forward and pushing them the way you have, Commissioner Hardesty, to make sure that we're investing in the things that maybe people don't notice right off the bat. But if they go wrong, they don't just go a little bit wrong, they go horribly wrong. And so thank you for keeping it front and center. And Commissioner Rubio, I understand this was an important collaboration. And I want to thank you for your willingness to work with Commissioner Hardesty and PBOT to make sure that all the loose ends were tied up and that the bureaus were working effectively together. And I haven't had much of a chance to thank the good folks at PBOT of late. So I just want to gratuitously shove a broad thank you in for our colleagues in PBOT. It's a very, very difficult job that you all have, and you don't always get the credit you deserve for the sidewalks, the right-of-ways, the infrastructural investments, and the maintenance of those areas. And increasingly, as I notice trucks parked on the side of the road and our workers that are, head down focused on the important work that they're doing, it's a dangerous job. And it should be noted that that the people who are working on our public right-of-ways do often find themselves in dangerous situations. And I just want to acknowledge that all of us here on the City Council see that. We appreciate it. And we thank you for your service. So with that, Commissioner Hardesty, I'm very happy to support your effort here. I vote aye, and the ordinance is adopted. Next item, 86, which is also a second reading.
Authorize a 5-year deferral of residential assessments in the Southeast 80th Avenue and Mill Street Local Improvement District.
Colleagues, any further business on this particular item? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Rubio.
Aye.
Ryan. Oh, you're muted, Commissioner Ryan.
On mute.
Thought I clicked it so quickly that I was going to impress you with my quick response. Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty, for bringing this forward. I actually see these are substantial investments from the Bureau of Transportation along 82nd corridor to be a big deal for a transformation of this part of town. So I just want to breathe into it a little bit. You know, transportation improvements are lovely. They also increase the likelihood of gentrification. So I really want to acknowledge and appreciate the proactive work that PBOT is doing around anti-displacement strategies, and for the presentation last week explaining the importance of critical partnership between the multiple bureaus and government agencies to ensure that the future infrastructure improvements do not impact longtime Portlanders and small businesses. These investments are long overdue, and I'm excited to see the results of this project. I vote aye.
Hardesty.
First, thank you, Mayor, for those kind words for PBOT. You don't know how much that will mean to the employees who didn't get to work from home during the pandemic and continue to show up every day dedicated to the work they do. This is a good project. Commissioner Ryan, you're absolutely right. This is not the 82nd Avenue project, but we are thinking about this project and doing this project in the 82nd Avenue project in a way that is inclusive of all community members and not having a bunch of little tables. So I'm looking forward to the collaboration because we get one chance to do it right. I'm happy to vote aye on this item.
Maps.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Commissioner, was this one of Andrew's projects, Andrew Abbey? I want to give him a shout out. Marvelous guy. I mean, just a terrific public employee. We're very, very lucky to have him here because he is very thorough. And I always appreciate the fact that he takes extreme diligence towards making sure that people's voices are heard in the local areas where we do these improvement projects. And he makes us all look good, quite frankly. And I will go one step farther and say that's not easy to do, but yet he succeeds. Very happy to vote aye, and the ordinance is adopted. And colleagues, we have one more item back to item number 81 off of the consent agenda, which was pulled.
Approve application under the multiple unit limited tax exemption program under the inclusionary housing program for Lentz mixed use building located at 9224 Southeast Ramona Street.
So this is Commissioner Ryan in the Housing Bureau, but it's my understanding that a member of the community pulled this. So it might make sense to hear from that member of the community first, just so we understand what the issues or concerns or questions are, and then we can tailor the presentation to that if there's no objection to that, Commissioner Ryan.
Great. Thanks.
Perfect. Keelan, who do we have signed up to testify?
Caitlin Nissen.
Welcome, Caitlin. 3 minutes, please. Name for the record.
Caitlin, you're muted.
Good morning, council members. How are you this morning?
Morning. Great. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me. I am a community member of Lentz, and for a very long time, our community members have felt so unheard and have felt pushed, very much pushed aside in the community of Portland. So I felt it necessary, especially, I'm not sure exactly what happened with the miscommunication about community members not being allowed to speak today, but I felt it necessary to try and make a voice for the Lentz community. I am a member of the Lentz Livability Association, and we are pretty much in consensus that our neighborhood really is lacking attention. It's lacking care. And my main concern with this issue is for the community members of Lents, this feels very unfair for the fact that our neighborhood taxes go up constantly, so much so that our rent can increase, the property taxes for the property owners can increase. And when the city council is going to try and waive a tax on a certain property, it almost feels, for a lack of a better analogy, almost like a slap in the face. Because not only do we have to pay our taxes, our income taxes and everything to try and make the city of Portland a better place, it seems as though these allocated resources are never spent on our community. So for the fact that our homeless situation in this area is becoming exponentially dangerous, and now we're trying to kind of increase a lower income housing, I'm assuming this is what it is. It wasn't very specific in what was written on the agenda today of exactly but it seems like, tax exemption, either way, even if it's a low income housing or not, these taxes could really help improve the community of Lents. We would really appreciate some of the Portland tax money to come our way. And if not giving this tax exemption to this particular group can help accomplish that, would be really fantastic. I know one of the main things in my community, I live right by 122nd and Foster. There are rows and rows and rows of RVs, and it is so filthy. And there are environmental impacts. This beautiful Powell Valley Road, or the Springwater Trail, and where Powell Butte is, it was such a beautiful area. And now there are waterways and parts of our community where there's greenery and trees are becoming so littered. So if there is any way you guys can find it in your hearts to hopefully take these taxes that the city is due and put them towards actually improving the community of Lents, instead of bringing in more people who are tax exempt and more people who will need that government assistance. I'm not saying that we don't want to house them, but why is it always Lents? Why is it always our community that has to suffer? So please understand, we just want some help. We want to live in a clean neighborhood. And if more taxes can help accomplish that, please, please understand. We would really appreciate it. Thank you for your time, commissioners.
Thank you. And we appreciate your testimony. If you stick around for a bit, there will probably be some response to some of the issues that you've raised. Commissioner Ryan, do you have somebody from the Housing Bureau who might want to address some of the tax-related issues?
Yes, we do. We have Dory Van Brockel here. Dory, welcome to the room. Please.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, and thank you, Caitlin, for your testimony. My name is Dory Van Brockel. I'm a program manager with the Housing Bureau in charge of both our inclusionary housing and our tax exemption programs, among others. And the item that's before council today approves a very small tax exemption amount for 4 units that would be with restricted income over 99 years through the inclusionary housing program. So the total tax exemption amount that we're looking at is around $14,000 that is part of the tax exemption that would be provided to the developer based on the mandate that they include these 4 units as affordable units through the, or at least restricted income units through the inclusionary housing program. But I'm happy to answer any further questions or provide more detail if it's helpful.
Colleagues, any questions? Thank you, Dory. Mayor, that's it on this specific project.
All right. Well, I do have a couple of comments, and I want to thank our commenter for pulling this item and having this discussion. And I want you to hear me tell you that I absolutely agree with what you have said. And I have taken a very unpopular stance, which is that there are places in this city where people should not be allowed to camp. And we have an impact reduction program, and it prioritizes those areas, those camps that are particularly problematic, that cause either public health or public safety or environmental hazards. And as I'm sure you're aware, just this past week, I signed an executive order to remove camps from areas that are high traffic corridors and along our public highway right of ways. And that's actually being done right now. I am very unhappy with what I have seen along the Springwater corridor. Not only did it used to be beautiful, but we also had a lot of volunteer help, and we spent millions of dollars restoring that sensitive environmental area. And I agree with you that there are now significant environmental, and I would even argue some significant potential public health issues related to that area. So it is very much on my radar as an area that needs to be remediated. That said, we are trying to be as humane as we possibly can. We're trying to comport with legal rulings like Martin v. Boise. We desperately need not only housing, but we also need support for temporary shelter. And that includes not only the shelter side, but also services people might need. There's a lot of people struggling with mental health and substance abuse issues and other issues. We need help with the litter collection. And while we at the city level have significantly increased our resources going towards these important needs, I am also calling on the governor and our legislative leadership and our legislature and other government jurisdictions to continue to work closely with us to not only help us do these things, but do them at the scale necessary to be able to make the difference that the public clearly expects us to make. And I just want you to know that's where I am. That's what I'm dedicated towards doing. And I'm going to continue to work with you and your neighbors and others across this city who are like-minded and believe that we can do better, both in terms of the condition of the city, and we can do better in terms of providing more humanitarian alternatives to people currently living outside in the elements. I appreciate you being here today. And with that, we will call the roll.
Rubio.
I want to thank Caitlin for your testimony today, and also thank you, Dory and Mayor, for your responses. These issues are always top of mind for us every day. And I appreciate you, Caitlin, sharing the experiences of you and your neighbors with us. In this specific proposal, we've seen similar multi-proposals come before this body, and we've approved them because they meet the requirements under code. So for that reason, I'm voting aye.
Ryan.
Yes, thank you, first of all, Caitlin, for being here. You have every right to show up at a city council meeting and express yourself. And the fact that you tied it into this is just fine. The fact is, taxes are going up for many Portlanders, and services and the basic infrastructure is deteriorating. So we're in a ditch, and you have every right to be here to express your frustration. And we have some real hot spots around the city. And I'd say in the top 5, the area that you're discussing, Lentz along Foster Road, is definitely one of them. So I appreciate you being here. On this specific issue for the Lentz mixed-use building, this brings our total number of private sector buildings in the inclusionary housing permit approval pipeline to 170, restricting a minimum of 1,392 units in otherwise market rate developments that do escalate. Although the system is not perfect, and we need development projects like this to meet the growing housing needs, supply side does need to keep growing. I look forward to working with the Bureau on refining this strategy and our city's entire approach to addressing affordable housing crisis. I do vote aye on this specific measure. Aye.
Hardesty.
I also want to thank you, Dory. You always are very informative, short, sweet, to the point. I appreciate that. I also want to thank the speaker who came in to testify on this issue. Those of us who live in East Portland really feel like there is never any garbage pickup in East Portland. And I share your concern. Even with the millions that we continue to invest, there are areas in my community that have never seen a city garbage truck in my neighborhood. So And I will continue to advocate that all of the city gets equal access to garbage cleanup opportunities, and we don't limit those cleanups to just certain areas of the city. The whole city is in crisis, and the city was in crisis long before COVID hit. It's just been exacerbated by COVID, by the other 3 crises that we've had over the last 2 years. And so I just want you to know, I continue to advocate like you do, that, we've got to be more intentional and more humane about how we approach folks who are suffering on our street. There's a lot of suffering out there. I vote aye on this item because, again, this item is not the issue that we're talking about. This item will add additional housing units in a city that is woefully underinvested in housing that people can afford to live in. So I vote aye.
Maps,
Aye.
Wheeler,
I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Colleagues, I have an announcement. Some of you are probably aware of this. As you know, our DCTU employees were on track to go on strike tomorrow. I'm very happy to say that they have just ratified the deal, and therefore they will not be going on strike tomorrow. So that's a very positive way for us to end our meeting today. And I, as always, thank our city employees for their sacrifices, for the hard work they do, and the great work they do as public employees. Thanks to everybody at DCTU. Colleagues, with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.